The title of the talk today is That's Impossible. And it's kind of an audacious talk topic, but you go with me a little bit. And when things are impossible, the first step in getting them to be possible is to believe that it's possible. You know, and some things are impossible, right? There's some things that are impossible, and we all know what they are. You know what they are, right? You know what's impossible. Teleportation is impossible. To instantly disappear in one place and show up in a different place. To the best of our knowledge, nobody's ever done that. That's impossible. Alchemy, which was a huge goal back in the good old days of turning lead into gold. Absolutely impossible. And the alchemists tried doing it forever and ever and ever, and it's completely impossible until in 1980, a scientist at MIT did it. Now, it was a little bit of pencil lead and a very little bit of gold, and it took a particle accelerator and cost way much more than the gold was worth. But such is the nature of possibility. So alchemy, impossible, well, certainly impractical. Cold nuclear fusion, about being able to have a nuclear fusion reaction that happens without being in the middle of an atomic explosion. That's impossible. Well, it's not practical at this point. We've done it, but it still takes more energy to do it than it creates. You know what's impossible, though. You know, it was 3 years ago, on the 24th of February in 2022, the Russian army invaded Ukraine. And everybody knew that the Ukrainians were going to last maybe 2 or 3 days. Ukraine defeating the Russians, fighting the Russians, keeping up with the Russians. Everybody knew that was impossible. But oh wait, it's not impossible. Here we are, 3 years later, and there's still a fight going on. The war is not over. But something that we thought was impossible turns out to be possible in a different way. And the people in Ukraine, this was not new to them, because in February in 2014, Russia had invaded Crimea and taken part of their territory. And so this has been going on for a long time. What's possible for Ukraine? What's possible for that part of the world? I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in our country right now as well. And something that I hear from a lot of friends, a lot of people who are passionate about life and fairness and so forth, is I just can't watch the news. I just can't. I have to stay away from the news. I can't deal with that. And I understand that. There's a lot going on, and it can be very dispiriting and very uncomfortable. But put yourself in the position of the people in Ukraine in 2022, having dealt with this for 8 years, the Russians in Crimea, to say, oh, I just can't deal with it. I can't pay any attention to that. And that's not what they did. That's not what they're doing. They said, no, this is not okay with me. This is the same thing. It's very, very difficult odds, and we're going to fight anyway. We're going to bring our best to it, and we're going to allow good, our version of good, our lifestyle, our way of life, to prevail. So when you find yourself saying, I just can't watch the news, understand that's where you are. If that's something that you do, understand that there's this fire hose of stuff that can come at us, and it is possible to be overwhelmed. The important thing to do, though, is to make it into a spiritual practice. This is not, slumming in bad news and woe is me and wringing our hands and saying, oh, what can possibly happen? How can this possibly turn out? We're all doomed. The important part about paying attention is so we can be present to what is ours to do. If there's a step to take, if there's an action to be involved in, if there is a prayer to be said, to be aware of what that prayer is, to be aware of what that invitation or intention is going to be, so that we can take the steps. And in the meantime, the rest of the spiritual practice that you get out of that, in addition to looking for the guidance as to what's yours to do, is to learn to surrender, to learn to let the stuff that's coming over you go by. Okay? You don't want to get soaked in the ickiness. And I completely understand that. My colleague Michael Beckwith, a long time ago, said that after he hadn't been watching the news for a long time, he said he picked up the newspaper and he realized that every story in the newspaper is a prayer request. And if every story in the newspaper is a prayer request, then what we can do is we can bring our best, our consciousness, our intention to have love and harmony and prosperity and peace and goodness in whatever way we understand it to unfold in the world. Is there something to do? Is there some action to take? A person in charge to make a phone call to? Maybe. Does it help to sign a petition? Maybe. There's an opportunity to go to a march. Is that a good idea? Maybe. I don't know. I can't give you the answer. I can't tell you what the issue is that's important for you. But don't run away from it. Because anything is possible. It's not impossible for anything to happen. Even things that everybody knows is true. Everybody on the planet completely agreed the Earth is flat. It was a while ago. There's been some new understandings that have come along since then. We also, at that point, knew that the Earth was the center of the universe and everything rotated around us. It turns out that there's additional information that's available that makes those impossibilities possible, that brings about something new and something different. But impossible and achieving the impossible is possible, but it's not easy. It's not easy. And that's where this philosophy, this teaching comes in, because we are creating our lives according to our beliefs. And when we are doing that, we get to start with the idea of, what kind of world do I want to live in? What's going to be happening in my backyard? Is this the backyard that I want to have? If love is unfolding to the highest degree possible, what does that look like? Not just for me, but as me. What's coming through me? What is it that I am being called to do? What kind of claim are you putting on the world? And where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line on what's not okay with you so that you can take a stand for or against whatever's going on? My friend Tim Stewart sent me the Facebook short, a little reel, and he thought that it was very powerful and was worth taking a look at. So what I decided to do was to share that one with you as well. And it's one of those things that goes for a little while, but it's actually part of a much longer sermon. It was done by Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley at the Alfred Street Baptist Church. He's talking about what type of Christianity he thought that they were talking about, and what type of Christianity is okay for him, and what type of Christianity is okay for you. Now, we're not particularly doing the Christianity thing, but you can understand that this extends in our direction and in all directions as well. This sermon was done on the 3rd of November, 2 days before the election. So there's still a lot of questions up in the air. I'm going to play a little clip of that sermon.
That's why I have such deep issue with this Christian nationalist movement saying that America ought to be a Christian nation. Whose Christianity? Do we want the Christianity of the colonizers who used Christianity to justify the eradication of indigenous people? Do we want the Christianity of the misogynists who even now in Project 25 are trying to roll back the 19th Amendment and remove women from the right to vote? Or maybe you want the slave trader Christianity that used Christianity to justify the enslavement and the killing of millions of Africans and declared slaves obey your master. Or maybe you like the Christianity of Bull Connor, a deacon in his church in Alabama, taught Sunday school on Sunday, but on Monday released police dogs on peaceful protesters who are fighting for their right to vote. Or maybe you want the Christianity of Westboro Baptist Church that says God hates queer folk. Or maybe you want the Christianity of the Southern Baptist Convention, which says that Black Lives Matter is a heresy. Or maybe you want the Christianity of the National Baptist Convention that still won't allow women to stand and preach. What Christianity do you want to reign over this land?
And it brings up some interesting questions. And by the way, Dr. Howard John is a Baptist minister. Bigger picture, what kind of world do you want to live in? What kind of world are you claiming? And what's it worth to you? Because there is some peace of mind that's available by not paying attention, by hiding, by going away and just letting things that seem beyond our control go and have their way. And there's some possibilities that we are engaging with them, that we can bring something to it. Because the first thing, as we say, the first thing is consciousness. If Henry Ford said, if you believe you can, you're right. If you believe you can't, you're right. And it's true. Anything is possible. I have been able to identify for myself personally a couple of game changers, things that will completely change the playing field for all of humanity. And people don't really think about this because until they happen, they're just impossibilities. The first one is unlimited cheap energy, and this is an idea that I've had since I was rather young. It is possible to do nuclear fusion, which is much more safe than fission because it uses hydrogen and it turns it into energy directly. It's the power that powers the sun, and being able to do that in a limited basis where you can just use the energy for something productive is helpful because it uses hydrogen, which we have a lot of, and the byproduct is energy, and it's just hydrogen. It turns it directly into energy. And by the way, if you have hydrogen, you can use it in a fuel cell. It becomes fuel for vehicles, and when you burn hydrogen or run it through a fuel cell, what comes out is water. So it's non-harmful for the environment. So they've been working on that for a long time. They haven't got it. If you remember the movie Back to the Future, I think it's Back to the Future 2. It's the end of the first one, where the Dr. What's-His-Name shows up in the DeLorean from the future, and he's powered it with a little Mr. Fusion device that's tucked into the back instead of the plutonium they used in the beginning of it. It's a game changer. I don't know how to do it. I do know that when it shows up, it's going to change all of the rules for everybody. The other one, and I've mentioned this before, the one thing that will unite all humanity, every race, every creed, every nation, every religion, every nationality, every human on earth, instantaneously into one bonded family, is the arrival of intelligent extraterrestrial life. The people from out there show up, it's gonna turn everything on its ear. We know that we're not the center of the universe. We find somebody else who's been doing all the things that we claim that we're trying to do, and they've been doing it for hundreds or thousands of years, and they're just going to come by and say, hey, how you doing? Let me show you how to do this. Game changer. And then who's different? There is no, among humanity, there's no they anymore. Suddenly the they is everything else that's going on in the universe. Huge possibilities there? Absolutely. Absolutely huge possibilities there. And we don't know what it looks like until it shows up. But we can set the intention for that sort of transformation to happen in our lives and our worlds. And the first thing we have to do is believe that it's possible. And at the risk of getting really Christian on this particular talk, because we just finished up the Do Healing Like Jesus class, and I've been paying a lot of attention to the New Testament, especially the parts where Jesus was talking. There was such a powerful story about belief. And it's not about belief, it's about the converse, it's about disbelief. So we know that there are stories, hundreds of healings that Jesus was just going through and teaching people and being wise, and he was the prophet, and he's teaching how to do healing and prayer, and it's landing really well on everybody. And then in Matthew, in chapter 13, and towards the end, 54 to 58. In the King James Version, it says, Now it came to pass when Jesus had finished these parables that he departed from there. When he had come to his own country, he taught them in their synagogue. Basically, it means he went home. He went home to Nazareth. He taught in their synagogue, and the people were so amazed that they asked, where does he get all this wisdom and the power to work these miracles? Isn't he the son of the carpenter? Isn't Mary his mother? And aren't James and Joseph and Simon and Judas his brothers? Don't his sisters still live here in our town? How can he do all this? So the people were all upset because of what he was doing. But Jesus said, prophets are honored by everyone except the people of their hometown and their own family. Prophets are honored by everyone except the people of their hometown and their own family. And the way it's written in the King James Version is a prophet is not without honor except in his own country and his own house. And as a result, because the people did not have faith, Jesus did not work many miracles there. Did they take his power away? Did they sap his ability? No. But if you believe you can't, you're right. And if you believe you can, you're right. So the invitation for us is to turn away from what we know is impossible, we think is impossible, we can't possibly imagine could happen, and identify what is the best, what is the highest, what is the most uplifting and loving and comfortable and life-affirming experience and situation and circumstance and engagement that I can imagine, and set the intention for that and bring that into prayer and bring that into your spiritual practice and open to that new possibility and see what happens. Because love is possible, for and through and in and as each of us, and we deserve it. So it is.